My name is Theodore Cottingham with the School of Me. I'm teaching this. I bring you lessons. I brought you many recordings, many documents of the first person words of God, where God requests your presence now for you to let God teach you directly with a new learning system, one that doesn't obey the laws of man nor man's calendar or schedule. And it's dependent upon you, what you choose. I'm a common, ordinary guy here in Eureka Springs, and I've been writing the first person words of God as they would flow into me in a stream, and I would write the words for over 20 years now. So I know it can be done. I know what kind of education it has produced in me. I know that Jesus is my pattern. Can be yours too if you like. It's not easy. It's not simple. It's not quick. But it's doable. The message is clear. Jesus went about teaching about the kingdom. Jesus did not teach church. Once his ministry began, he wasn't in church, holding a church service, passing the plate, making an altar call, asking you to join the church. Jesus is the pattern. And Jesus showed us many things, told us many things that people seldom talk about. So many people want Jesus to return, to set up his kingdom, so everything will be hunky-dory and they won't have any needs anymore. And all their expectations will be fulfilled, and they will have no responsibility for anything. But that, my friend, all of that can't be farther from the truth. You see, Jesus came as a common man. He was human. Jesus was not special. And I submit to you that there are many things that you have held as truth, that if you begin to let God teach you directly, God will correct. And if you won't let God correct you where you're wrong, you're pretty arrogant. The most humble of all is God. God who lets us do what we want. And I've been taught this, and I have many lessons. I've written the first person words of God contained now in over 20 databases. The first database was the largest. Database 1 has 2,400 lessons in it. 2,400 lessons that I wrote in so many different places, so many different venues, and so many different circumstances. You see, we have wanted God to be a certain way. We've been taught God was this, that, or the other, and that God said. And we've had people interpret things that they thought God said. And man made all sorts of rules, rites and rituals and practices about them, and set up bureaucracies, authorities. And I say unto you, Jesus came up as a common man. He learned to let God teach him directly. That's how he learned who he was and how to become who he became. And I suggest to you, Jesus became the Christ because he received the anointing of the words that taught him the first person words of God into his heart, taught him who he was. And he learned to think it not robbery to be equal with God. You see, it's all changing now, folks. And all the teachings that so many people have taught people have been the blind leading the blind. But this is a new day, friend. Are you willing for God to teach you directly? Are you a student of God? Why would you even consider refusing God as your teacher if God is willing to teach you? But I share with you, God will not come and teach you directly if you hold the strings in your heart that want what you experience with God to hear God affirm what you want to know, to affirm what you believe in, to affirm your preacher, to validate what you think your book says. I assure you that it doesn't work that way. To let God teach you, you learn to pray all over again. You learn to change how your heart feels about how you say what you say, how you value your word, and how you value the words that you think God says unto you. For as God speaks, God creates. Just like you. As you speak, you create. And you can believe anything you want. Your mind doesn't care what you believe as long as it keeps your attention. The mind of man is very cruel. It's a hard taskmaster. And if you don't master it, it masters you. And it will drive you nuts. You're simply a slave of your mind. The mind that is taught by other minds who don't know God, who don't know the light, who haven't experienced the tenderness of light, the way it corrects, caressingly, tenderly. You see, God that I know, God that I've experienced, God that has taught me these years and given me all these documents, told me to open up a school, told me that God wanted to teach in the classroom and not be barred from the classroom, from teaching through every person, so that every person would help every person know and understand, and leadership would arise in each one. I've experienced this. Why would you want anything less? Why do so many people want to pay tens and even hundreds of thousands of dollars, often going into debt, to get an education that's accredited so they can make money, make their place in the world, have social standing, retire, and die? Aren't you willing to question the system, to question the values, to question the orthodox teachings, to question the interpretations that you have built your life around? Aren't you willing to let God teach you? Are you willing to let God give you an education? It's very costly, because to allow God to teach you, you lay down holding those beliefs. You lay down what you want, and you listen. And for me, so many times, so many things that I prayed about, God would address in ways sometimes that seem very ambiguous, but most of the time it wasn't immediate. It was over the next few days, something here, something there. And the answer I had to assemble. I had to put it together. I had to link. I had to make the connections. So when I talk about an education by God, being a student of God, and how God may teach you, it's not at all line by line, precept by precept, course by course that only deals with that course. It's very much as if it was a quantum arrangement. It's a mosaic. It's a puzzle. It's layered. It's a process that brings forth transformation if you're willing to live, to listen, and learn, becoming the Word, the living Word that flows through you, the Word that God teaches in your classroom that you always have you with you, whether you study in a class that I stand in front of or a class in Eureka Springs or not. You see, the School of Me is for everyone who realizes who they are. We have never been separate from God. We have never needed a mediator. We have never needed the blood of Jesus. Jesus' blood did not pay for your sins. It's time we grew up, folks. And all of this will be taught to the nimble heart. You don't have to take my words for it. If you begin to let God teach you directly, God will teach you all things. Biochemistry, quantum mechanics, how to heal people. Are you willing to do the works that Jesus did? Are you willing to learn how? The only way we're going to fulfill becoming as our pattern is to let God teach us directly. And the wisdom of God, the light of love, flows in a stream of energy. Energy that we allow to come through us. For if you don't let it out, you limit yourself greatly. The God I know is not one of wrath and vengeance. The God I know teaches in unconditional surrender, to listen to your very essence, to always be present anytime you want to converse, pray, or listen. We are moving from an earth that has created religions, hierarchies, rules, and enslaved people by them, to a world of light, love, and unconditional surrender. People of humility who actually love each other, who actually care, who actually respect each other, who actually know they are not separate in the mind of God. The people that are coming about to be taught by God are people of every nation, tribe, and tongue. Women and men shall no longer believe that Jesus was the only Son, or that God was male, or that we're supposed to go to church and listen to a preacher. Christianity has made spectators, bystanders, anything but leaders. And now it's changing. And I'm just sitting here sharing my heart with you about this new day. This is a new beginning. And the world will not be taught by leaders or lovers who want the people they lead to worship another. And the world will not be controlled by controllers. It's changing dramatically. You, my friend, are being called to the front of the room. You're being called to be willing to sacrifice your fear of God, your fear of being laughed at, your fear of ignorance. Who do you care to teach you? What do you want? What do you want to know? How do you want to know it? What strings will you wrap around God, or will you let them loose? Are you willing to learn to pray? Are you willing to receive the energy of God, creating the mind of God in you? Are you willing to originate the mind of Christ? Christ is coming about, and it won't be worshiped. It won't be a redeemer figure. And nobody will value their blood in a way that was talked about in Jesus. They won't worship the crucifixion. You see, the stories have fashioned us in so many ways, but the stories have been wrong. So many of them. But if you want to believe your book, adore your book, and live your life according to the precepts of Orthodox religion and then die, you can. But I tell you, millions of people now are going to be leaving the education of religious institutions, and they'll be leaving the churches because the message is that Christ, the Anointed, is who will be it. Never was it God's heart to exclude women to be equal with God. If you want to hold on to your belief system, you can. There's a price. And if you're willing to let God teach you directly, there's a price. And the price is time, effort, energy, and laying down what you have held as truth to let what really is the truth of light teach you. So if you're not willing to be wrong, I don't think you'll be writing the first person words of God. So much is changing. I'm just a common guy, an ordinary guy. Educated by God to know what I know, to create this school and offer you the teachings that I've been given so you can see my path. You can hear the words. You can read the words. There's over 700 videos on YouTube now of me teaching. Most of them are where I surrenderedly have taught in a stream of consciousness, a stream of God consciousness, where I have said things over and over and over as a norm that I didn't know, that I began to put together, that I began to assemble, that I began to feel and have the knowledge of God. God creating that consciousness of Christ within me. I had no idea this would occur. I was simply desperate enough to come to God and say, I want to know you. I read about Enoch, Elisha, various figures in the Bible that supposedly walked with God. Had the story of God talking with Adam, Eve in the garden. I thought no matter how right, correct that is, I began to cry out to God, I want to know you. Correct me. And sometime, probably dozens, maybe hundreds of times in a given day, many times, I begged God, I want to know you. Correct me where I'm wrong. I want to know you. Correct me where I'm wrong. I'll pay the price. I didn't know what the price was. I didn't know I'd be sitting here 20 years later, still wondering about so many things, and yet having thousands of documents come through me and videos and knowing what I know. But there's so much more. The Creator creates the creation. And just like the prodigal son went to a far country and at some point came to his senses, returned to his father's house. His father had no condemnation. His father didn't say, "Were you a success?" We are coming back to realize that story is just one of so many that do speak to us in the now. And that so many of us have been waiting on God, but God has been waiting on us to teach us directly, where God can caress us and heal the wounds of religion, the wounds of our soul, the wounds of someone we've loved, the wounds of not being enough, of being unworthy, the wounds of trauma, war, brutality. You know, I guess I'm just sitting here making this recording kind of like if we were talking in the coffee shop or something. I know I've kind of rambled. I just felt like this afternoon I wanted to make this recording. And ask you again to please let God teach you directly. Let the Word be the living Word, the Word that's alive, that comes through you, through your own lips, that you write with your own pen. That's the living Word, sourced by light. And not all sources are the same. There's much maturity that we must seek to walk in, to be able to do what Jesus said. Jesus said, "If you believe in me, you will do the things that I do, and greater." It's a time of arising leadership, a leadership transformation, where people are going to they're going to learn to hear this message deeply within them and remove the strings and the boundaries off of God to let God teach them directly. It's going to change many things, many economies, many cities. It'll have a direct bearing on just about everything. But aren't you ready for love? Love that light is. Light that loves love. That is truly operating in the light and love of unconditional surrender. Without condemnation. Without the rites and rituals of trying to meet someone else's expectations, even God's. I suggested to you that the most powerful decision that we can make is to surrender. Surrendering to be who we really are. The real me is you. The real me of the God mind, the mind of God. The consciousness of one, the consciousness of Christ, the Christ consciousness, the divine feminine, is one that reproduces itself in love, light, and peace. It's nurturing. It's not brutal. It's not dictatorial. God is the most humble of all. God is not just beside you. God is not just in you. God is who you see in your mirror. When you look into your mirror, every time you comb your hair, brush your teeth, wash your face, do you think that's somebody else's energy you're using? Or you think it's just yours that's separated from God? Or has our mind been taught to create that which we think we are in separation in a magnetic world? A world of time, space, and gravity. Protons, neutrons, electrons. But I tell you, meons are coming alive. Meons. It was a new word to me. A new word. Like meonics. The study of meology. Me. Me. Well, who is me? Me. That God is. The consciousness of one, not separate. So we're learning to surrender. We're willing to see now, as a student of God, letting God teach us directly, that what Jesus was teaching about was the kingdom of heaven, not church, not an organized bureaucracy, not a way to set up rites and rituals, but to create the consciousness of the Creator, all being equal in the consciousness of love that creates healing for everyone equally. And this is what we're coming into. And it's gradual and it's sudden, both and. So we're becoming the knowledge of God, taught by the creative teaching methods of one who does not limit us to line by line, precept by precept anymore, nor what some teacher thinks. This, my friend, puts us at the center of responsibility to listen and learn, to create our own transformation in the revelation of God to be it. Humility is core central. It's the opposite of hubris, arrogance. So I am here in Eureka Springs for now. Seems like quite a long time that my life has gone in what seems to be about 7-year segments. I've been here 7 years. And it seems like now the school which I've tried to start several times in Tulsa, several times, maybe now is coming about. But it's unique. And God is unique. God has a sense of humor. I could talk a lot about the words I have written, the 2,400 lessons. That's what I should do that sometime. There's so many songs that are just, they're written. All they need is the music. There's a number of funnies I mean, laugh out loud funnies too. And over the course of those years of writing 2,400 lessons in the school, the diction and grammar changes quite dramatically. There were periods that I was requested. You'll find lessons, multi-page lessons, some of them have no punctuation at all. None. No capital letters. And that makes it challenging. You begin to understand. It's in what you see. You are deciding. You are the pilot. You're making the decision. So here we are in April of 2024. I'm beginning a school again, the School of Christ, the School of Leadership, the School of the 21st Century Christ, the School of God that lets God teach in the classroom for the purpose of you learning to let God teach you directly, learning to receive the first person words of God, so that millions now will receive leadership training from the Creator, from the source, whether we call it God or not. Thank you for listening. I have many questions. I still have many questions. So many times, the questions God has answered has simply brought forth a whole lot more questions. And that's okay. It's time to mature. There's no more being spoon-fed. We're no longer eating the vomit of someone else's thoughts. We're learning to receive directly. And it's not always easy, but it's always loving. The love of light and the light of love is here. And there will be people now of every nation, tribe, and tongue being healed, who will heal others and walk in their shoes, doing all the miracles Jesus did and more. There's no rapture like it's been taught, folks. This is the new beginning of the angels coming home. Coming home not to another planet leaving this one, but the angels coming home to a consciousness, creating the state that is no longer limited to this magnetic world, but being able to operate in it. So whether you want to call it our glorified body, our resurrected body, we're becoming a new creation, not defined by religion anymore. We're becoming the real us, the light power, the power of love, light, that no longer limits us to this flesh body. I know I've rambled, and yet I will share with you that so many times that I received the love of God coming through me, they come in a way that after I receive them, I have to reread them several times and basically assemble them to connect the dots, connect the subjects. Because when I do that, when you do that, when you do this, it's a transforming process. It's not just an exercise to take more time. You're surrendering to see what's being said. And you're not limiting the answers in the process that I'm describing. This is new, and it's out of the box. And it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the timid. It's not for those who are afraid to see their face in a recording. Students now will share, not in the sense of pleasurism, but in a sense now that we want all of us to know the things that are coming forth. And there's a tenderness between us, just like there's a tenderness of God with us. There's a respect, and there's patience, there's kindness. And whether you have a degree in electromechanics or the quantum world, PhD in physics, whether you're a neurosurgeon or whether you're a high school dropout, doesn't matter. Because now we who are willing for God to teach us will learn how to let God teach us. And we will not be afraid. We will learn to sit down at the table of one with God. And let God teach us with the energy where our hearts become not separate. And then we arise and we go eat supper, we go eat breakfast, we go to work. We do the things in our normal daily schedule. Sometimes but then there's a time, one day you arise and you know it's time. Just like one day Jesus got up, the sun came up, whatever, he got up. And his schedule was never to be the same again. He went down to the temple, sat down in the chair reserved for the Messiah and said, "Today, this is fulfilled in your hearing." But the religious didn't want to hear that. They took him out of town to drop him over a cliff. That's how much they appreciated Jesus. But Jesus walked through them. He walked through them. See what's being said. He wasn't limited to the molecular. He walked through them. And this, my friend, is what a born-again person is. This is the life of the angels coming back into being in the power of light that's pure love, where there's no condemnation. And we heal the earth. And we don't limit ourselves or each other. And there's no practice of religion that will deny our place. And our place is in the seat of Christ, the anointed, because we anoint each other, us first. You begin to see that you were never separate from God and that the energy of God is what you are. But now you won't hold God apart from you, nor demand that God teach you along the lines of what you have believed. It's all changing dramatically. And a lot of religious teachers, maybe who have robes and collars and degrees and large followings, may hate me, but I release the common woman from all the hurts and wounds of the past and all the patriarchy that has been so brutal, so damning. I release men and women, children, from the jaws of religion. I release women and men from the seas of shame, guilt that religion has put on them because of this, that, or the other. We begin to learn to walk in sin no more because it doesn't exist like we've been taught. If there's any sin at all, it is simply that we've been separated from God because of our ignorance. But now we choose to be ignorant no more by letting God teach us directly. This is what meology is about, meonics, the real me. That's why it's called the school of me. The school of God, the school of you, the school of the Most High, the school of the humble. The school of the newborn, new creation. I hope you'll be one 21st century Christ also, doing the works, not afraid to let the first person words of God flow through you as you learn to receive them, to write them, to record them, and not be afraid of men or women or the teachings of the past. I go now, wrapping this up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring about these words. Become an explorer. The theme of this school is adventure and exploration because you're entering a frontier of mankind's mind, no more limited by, but you're entering the mind of God. I love you all. If you haven't really explored the School of Me website, please do so. theschoolofme.com. And there's another website on there that I reference that has the 2,400 lessons that form the basis curriculum of this school. There's much light and love in your future if you will be it instead of worshiping it. Come in to the maturity. Be responsible for you. Live your love and be the light of the world. Thank you, my friends. I love you all. This is Theodore Cottingham in Eureka Springs. with the School of Me, hoping you'll make the choice this day to be a student of God and experience the tenderness, the love, the unconditional love and surrender of the energy of God that will love you and heal you and flow through you and teach you all things. I love you. You can write me at Box 34 in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, USA. My email is Theodore@Eureka. All run together. TheodoreEureka@gmail.com. You're the light of the world. You're the energy of God. Now recreate you with it with the consciousness of one. Humility required, preceded by surrender to be who you really are. Okay, I go now. I love you. Thank you again. Thank you for listening, for sharing these words, picking up your pen, writing me, writing God, writing, letting God write to you, letting God write through you. I love you all. See ya. Thanks again. Good day. Thank you so much. Good day.